Of course, I make mistakes. Of course, I make mistakes just like everybody else. It was something that I myself participated in. I myself, was guilty of this. I myself was totally guilty of it. I allowed my feelings to override the way that I typically behave, and I didn't like that side of myself in any capacity. But again, no one's perfect, and you can't hold yourself. Thank you so much for the like. And you can't hold yourself to this idea of perfection, right? We're all going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But when you do acknowledge it and recognize it and take ownership of it, that's when you're really able to make lasting change. And that's when you're able to kind of remind yourself, like, hey, there's still progress that I probably need to make in this arena, in this area. Hi, Paul. There's probably, things that I can work on in this area. And so it just was another reminder to me that even though I'm a wellness coach and even though I, can speak about handling emotions in a positive way, and even though I can, lead and guide people to being a better version of themselves, that doesn't mean that I'm always the best version of myself 100% of the time. And no one can be the best version of themselves 100% of the time, right? So that's not something that I would expect out of my clients, and that's definitely not something that I expect out of myself. But I like to be honest, and I like to let my viewers know. Oh, thank you so much, Paul. You're so kind. But I always like to let everybody know, like, I definitely try as much as I possibly can to practice what I preach. But there are definitely times when I fall short. There are definitely times when I let, something that annoys me or triggers me or bothers me. Of course, sometimes I let it get to me, just because I have all the tools in the toolbox, and just because I have a lot of things that I've learned. And thank you so much, Paul, it's so kind. Just because I have a lot of things that I've you know been able to use, and all these things that I'm able to rely on to have coping mechanisms for, it doesn't mean I don't have emotions. It just means that sometimes I even have to remember, okay, I need to express this a little better. I need to express this in a little bit more positive ways. That way, it's not going to be negatively affecting anybody around me or anybody that, I care about and love. And, it's just kind of a reminder to everybody, like, our energy, right? Just the way that we are, the way that we interact with people, it really can affect other people. Now, I always say it's our responsibility, right? We allow and we choose who we allow to influence us. We allow and we choose what we allow to, influence us. But at the same time, you do have to remember that it is your responsibility as well to try to maintain a higher frequency of energy, to try to, be a more positive and better person if that is your goal, right? If that's what you want to do, if that's, what you want for your lifestyle, if that's who you want to be. I'm a big believer that you cannot change if you don't want to change for yourself. You just can't. So you have to want it for yourself. So if you don't want to be a better person, if you don't want to, come away feeling a little bit more enlightened, if that's not really what you're into, then maybe this channel isn't for you. But it doesn't mean that, I don't want to speak with you and, get your perspective. Of course not. That's what this is all about. This is all about having different perspectives coming together and everyone kind of learning together and having this idea of what is wellness to you, right? Having a lot of different perspectives on this, because that's exactly why I like to have discussions. This is exactly why I like to thank you, Paul. It's very kind of you. And thank you all so much for the likes. These are the kinds of dialogues that I think we need to have, in general, across the board. I think we all need to be able to engage in more dialogues. I think we all need to be able to be better at having, thank you so much, Ask. Hi. I think we need to all be able to have better communication skills. That's something that I've brought up in the past as well. Um, last night I definitely did not have good communication skills, right? So going back to what I was talking about when I had this little tantrum, we'll call it a mini tantrum, but a tantrum nonetheless. It was not mature. And exactly precise. Yeah. Communication is a really big aspect. And even how you talk to yourself, right? The self-talk, the way that you communicate. If you're someone, thank you so much for the like. If you are someone that is always, talking down to yourself, if you're someone that is always you know, being really negative towards yourself, if you're someone that's always, just kind of not being so kind to yourself, well, you're going to find that you're going to probably be pretty critical towards the people around you as well. Even if it's just in your mind, and that can really harshly negatively affect you. Um, Give me 1 second, y'all. When I say tantrum, I'm being overly dramatic about it. It wasn't a tantrum at all. It was more just about that I had had a conversation with my partner, and I just felt like I wasn't being heard. So I just said something that I didn't need to say, and it was like that. Okay, give me 1 second, y'all. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, so communication is a really big component, a really big aspect, but I like to be honest about my real life. I like to be very truthful, and I like to always say, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm going to be 100% authentic with you and let you know that it's totally okay if you have slip ups, and it's totally okay to, on your path of trying to be maybe a clear communicator, or on your path of trying to be a more well-rounded individual, or be more authentic, or being more positive, or whatever it is that your goal is, right? Thank you so much for the likes, guys. I really appreciate that. It's just one of those things where you want to remember. um, it's always a process. It's always, I feel like I have lipstick on my teeth. Uh, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just keeping it real. Um, this is a really interesting live chat today. All right. Hi, Charlie. Um, so, oh, you don't want to know Ted. But yeah, so when we develop those skills, when we have that clear communication, when we have that, what's my favorite food? That's a really complicated question for me. I like a lot of different kinds of food. I could tell you I love acai bowls. That's probably one of my favorite things right now. It's not really a type of food, I guess. I know. I keep feeling it. Uh, Thank you. I appreciate you very kindly. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. I'm like, where is it? And then I just have to like look in more. And you would think I didn't always have these glasses. So for anyone that's new to my channel, um, it it was something that they were like, we really thank you so much, Marco. I really appreciate that. It was something that they were like, you need to start wearing your glasses like all the time. And I was like, yeah, but I'm on camera a lot. There's gonna be a lot of like reflection. There's gonna be a lot of things, and they're like, yeah, I'm so sorry, but you really need to be wearing your glasses more. Like you're having issues. I was like, okay. And I was hoping that that would mean I wouldn't have to lean in and be having to read in the live chat and things like that. I thought I'd be able to like sit back and still be able to read it. Well, I was mistaken. So, but yeah. So when it comes to communication, when it comes to things like that, and being able to, um, exactly, have to be able to see, right? So when you're able to, thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that. When you're able to have clear communication, or even if um you and your partner kind of have that knowing of, okay, well, I know when this person's, frustrated. I know when my partner is kind of like beyond a certain point, or maybe they know, they're like, yeah, I did kind of do something that maybe they don't normally like, or whatever it is, right? All right, 1 second, y'all. And that too. All right. So, sometimes it's like maybe it's just taking accountability, and sometimes it's like you just need to be able to be honest with each other. So, it's one of those things where I know that I need to apologize, and I know that I need to be like, I was in the wrong with what I said, and I apologize for overreacting for sure. And then just moving on from there and going on from there, making sure that you have a clear and consistent dialogue, making sure that you're always, as much as you can be, on the same page, and as much as you can be, being as loving and as compassionate towards that other person as you possibly can be. And you can take this into all your relationships, right? You can take this into the relationships that you have, exactly, as honest as you can be, right? As honest as you can be in your relationships, in general, but especially with your partner, right? If you can't be honest with them, then they may not be the right person for you. And that's a tough thing to swallow for some people. Uh, Definitely, I've had clients get upset with me about that. They're like, oh, and then they kind of just get silent, and there's that shutdown mode, and I'm like, oh yeah. Like, well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but if you can't, share something with your partner, if you can't, this is the person that you're choosing to spend a lot of time with. You're putting in a lot of, energy into, you're putting potentially money into, you're putting a lot of yourself into. So it's just to, for what, if you can't be honest with them, if you can't tell them the truth, if you can't share, then what's the point of it, you know now there's always, I'm not a marriage counselor, actually. um okay, hi Lou. But yeah, so it's just kind of one of those things where I feel like it's just one of those things where, you know in general, having communication that is clear is ideal. When you can communicate clearly, when you are able to, be able to not only communicate clearly, but have really good and open body language, right? So, and I'm sure you've seen this on the street, I'm sure you've seen this. I'm not a teacher, I know that I look like one right now. I'm a wellness coach, actually. So with your body language, right? I'm sure you've seen this on the street. In general, you've probably done this yourself, but you'll have a lot of the like crossed arms, the looking down a lot, but a lot of it is closed arms, or you'll see a lot of like protecting your stomach, or a lot of like just the crossing of arms, being very protective of your body, right? So that is kind of indicative that someone is a little bit more closed off, that someone is a little bit more like not really wanting. Thank you so much, Felix. I appreciate that. That someone is really like not. wanting to, or they're uncomfortable, or they're feeling uncomfortable. When someone has more open um, body language, when someone is able to, I do sometimes. When someone's able to kind of have their arms more open, when they're not really as afraid of feeling like they need to protect their body, even if it's just on a subconscious level, it just kind of tells you a little bit more about having that open communication. Okay, I got. That was pretty funny. I'd buy you a hoodie for Christmas. Well, thank you. That's very kind. Oh, that's funny. Oh, okay. Well, I think that, being a fan of someone, you can definitely be a fan of someone regardless of, what they do. But if that's something that's important to you, if your faith is important to you, then that's awesome. But yeah, it's definitely not regularly. So I'm going to be very authentic and 100 with you. So yeah, so having that open body language, right? Or as you can see, right, when I start to kind of get into my head or get into a certain place where not so much I'm uncomfortable, but I'm starting to kind of like, get whatever, I'll start kind of doing like self soothing things. Or, I mean, we literally just saw this happen like right now live. And it's a completely unconscious thing. It's something that I just naturally will do. Um, that's a really interesting question. I don't know why I can't just be my natural self, but that's okay. Felix, I've never talked about having a brother before or anything like that, so I'm not sure where you're getting that from. um, so anyways, um, but yeah, so having that, more open communication, or if you feel like maybe you come off standoffish or things like that, having more open, you know, communication would okay. And then there's just some days where like some things hit, some things are funny, and then there's other days where I'm like, I'm not a fan of the like trolling and all that kind of stuff. Like I can take it some days, but other days I'm just like, yeah, no, thank you. I'm from Texas. Yeah. And I definitely love Texas. The weather has been definitely hit or miss for sure. Um, but yes, I am from Texas. And it's just been like going from pretty cold to warm and then cold to warm. That's a really great question, Scott. And thank you, Sean. That's very kind of you. So, I have gotten my resources from a lot of different things. I've studied DBT and CBT, so that's dialectical behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. I read a lot, but I actually started in coaching as a yoga instructor, and then I went into the fitness industry, and I was in that arena for a very long time. And so when I was working as a personal trainer, what I would do is, sorry guys, what I would do is I would be there and I'd be talking to my clients, and I'm like, this is a lot like coaching, like wellness coaching. This is a lot of, that kind of deal. Okay, I kind of understand now what wellness coaches do. Well, then I left the fitness industry, did a few other things, then got back into coaching in the date coaching realm. And then from there, I just kind of got into wellness coaching a little bit later. And as far as resources go, like I've studied a lot of different things, I have a lot of different certifications. And so as far as like specific resources, I would need like my books in front of me to give you and cite you the actual things, but it's not Chat GPT, if that's what you're wondering. I do like reading rule books. I do like doing research. And I do like to learn as much as I can about tools and therapies and things like that that are out there to help people and that are out there to um, help my clients especially, but things that I've done for me that have helped me personally. Because I really feel that in order to be successful when you're making a change, or in order to be successful when you're wanting to improve in something or improve yourself. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate that. I hope you are as well. I really feel like it has to be from within. It really does have to be from within. Everything has to come from yourself. And so when you're self driven, when you're self motivated, when you're the kind of person that's going to be looking into things yourself as well. And it's always helpful to have a mentor. So, and I've had a lot of mentors over my entire span of career and stuff. But when you have people guiding you, when you have community, but especially when you have people guiding you and people teaching you, it's just so incredibly helpful. And I can't tell you the value of that. That's honestly what helped me so much. Is I didn't always have the speaking skills. In fact, when I was younger, I had a stutter, a really bad one. I couldn't say my last name. I couldn't say, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I just couldn't do. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. That's very kind of you to say. It was really embarrassing. And so I had to go to a speech therapist. And I'll never forget, the speech therapist told me, she was like, um, well, for someone that has such a speech impediment, you have really good eye contact. And for whatever reason, that little thing that she said, the fact that I had really good eye contact, that's what I took away from that. I took that little compliment that she gave me, right? Even though she was like, yeah, you have a really bad stutter. And yeah, I didn't hear all of that stuff. I heard the compliment. And that's what I took away from that. I was like, okay, well, I know that I have really good eye contact with people when I'm speaking with them, even if I'm stuttering and even if I mean, it was like reading aloud in class was the worst thing, but that's what they used to always make us do. So I remember there was this time where um, I think we were reading like 1984 or something like that, and we were going by our rows. Thank you, I appreciate that. And so it got to my turn, and it was just like Snickers all across the, uh, all across the room. Total Snickers, total people like laughing, making fun. Um, yes, that would be the reflection of my ring lights. um, so, thank you, Felix. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say. So it was just a constant thing. It was like I couldn't speak. I couldn't really communicate well, and that's why I found it. Thank you so much for the like. I appreciate that. It's been so incredibly important to me because of those experiences, as or in my childhood, to be able to not only learn how to overcome the stutter, learn how to overcome not just by speech therapy. And yeah, they can be. It's funny because I actually remember the first and last name of the one who used to hi Donnie, of the person that used to bully me the most. It's so funny what the brain will like hold on to and still remember. It's so weird. But I it doesn't bother me now because I understand that, when you're a child, your brain is not fully developed. So you can't really hold things against people when, or against another child when their brain isn't fully developed. You can't really let that be too traumatizing or something. So it's just kind of one of those things where, thank you. It's just one of those things where you have to decide what you're going to continue to allow to affect you. And what I did decide to do is I decided to allow that to motivate me, because I was like, I really don't want that to I got it at a thrift store. So I love going thrift shopping. It's like one of my guilty pleasures. And I just randomly found it at a thrift store. So thank you. Yeah. Um, but anyways, so yeah, so I allowed the whole basically the fear of not wanting to be made fun of. I used that fear, used it as motivation. Um, yeah, I tend to. I get really lucky. I don't. I just get really lucky when I go thrift shopping. So it's something I really have fun doing. I enjoy doing it. I do orange, yes. Hmm. Yeah, if you go to my posts, you can scroll and yes, yeah, I definitely know that feeling when you're like, you mean they have the Vans in my size? What? My favorite book of all time. Oh gosh. Ooh. I mean, this is gonna sound like, oh, this is just because she always talks about it on her channel. I really like the Gene Keys. I find it really interesting. It's not my favorite book though. Oh, this one's tough for me because I have a lot of books that I like. Um, there's this book called Madness by Maria Hornbacher that I think is incredibly excellent. Just really well written. It's a really interesting dive into someone that has the experience of bipolar disorder. And she's just an incredible writer. So if you're interested in things like autobiographies and memoirs and things like that, I would definitely check that book out. What I will say is that it definitely gets explicit. She gets very detailed with some stuff. So, yeah, that's one thing. Yes, Nike. Yeah, Nike Airs. Exactly. I actually found some not too long ago. I was really happy about that. So, yeah, I would definitely say Madness is my favorite book. It's just really well written, and she always cites everything so beautifully, and everything's just like perfect. Thank you, Felix. I appreciate that. So yeah, and I think too, when it comes to forming community and finding community, right? That's something that I think we forget about a lot. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just up in a whole bunch of little clips back here. Um, it's something that we tend to forget about, something that we tend to not really, or maybe we don't think a lot about it because maybe we already have a really like good like set of community, a good set of friends. But what I've found is that there's definitely times when people go through certain stages in their life, they're kind of like getting rid of their circle of friends, or they're kind of like maybe just moving on. They've gotten a new job, or they've moved, or and finding that sense of community is incredibly important, right? Especially so we don't have those kinds of feelings of like sadness and loneliness. And so we can build something around us that we have a lot of support. So when we're doing this, what we want to do is we want to be able to definitely, you know, have people that we, can find something that we agree on or have something like a starting point, right? So what I found is if you have podcasts that you listen to, if you have content that you're a big fan of, TV shows, right? So getting into the mix with people that are also fans of things that are similar to things that you're a fan of. That's a big way and a really easy way to kind of get yourself into a group or community. And I know Felix, I'm not sure who you're talking to, hun. um, I wonder if you're like, what's it called when you do your like dictation to thing is on. I don't know if you can do that on YouTube, but it might be. But yeah, so but finding that community, finding, a support system, having all of that is increasingly important and incredibly important. Hi Charlie, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate that. So having that support system, and that was something that was incredibly important for me, and something that I've, really taken seriously, and has really helped me not only with my mental health, but it's helped me with my career, it's helped me with my relationships, it's helped me with a lot of different things, right? Because we have so many people. Can we please be friends? I mean, i'm I'm a wellness coach, and I have a lot of friends, and I have a really big support group, and we can definitely talk on here while I'm on here for sure. But yeah, and that's another thing too, is like understanding the difference. Thank you actually, Charlie, for saying that. Understanding the difference. This is something that was always told to me as a child, and I never really understood what it meant. So, I was, and I still to this day am very much like an open book. And I, was sometimes too much of an open book, and would tell people things that maybe weren't the most trustworthy of people, or maybe didn't have my best interest at heart. And, very naive, just didn't think like any of these things would really matter, that anybody would really care about the things that I was talking about too much. And, oh, well, I'm going to send positive vibes your way, Charlie. I hope you feel better. um, and so, you know, as I've gotten older, I haven't really stopped the sharing, but what I definitely have learned is the difference between and how to compartmentalize, people that you consider to be like close, like trusted friends, people who you consider to be like acquaintances, always having people kind of in their box, in a way, just as a way to keep yourself safe. So that way you can kind of remind yourself of the boundaries that you need to have with certain people, and to understand also that you can't exactly have that same level of trust, and you can't have that same level of, or the same type of relationship with everybody that you have with, other people. So definitely understanding that people need to earn your trust, and people need to earn your respect, and understanding that it's not just a automatic thing. Now with me, I definitely speak respectfully. I definitely give people a lot. Oh my goodness, 2 surgeries. That's a lot, Charlie. Well, I definitely hope that you are on the mend, and I hope that you get to feeling better. I'm sure that must be so, so much to be going through. And it's definitely no fun after surgery either. And the healing process is laborious. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that. Yeah, you have a question? Okay. Such a random question. Would I rather shrink down or be a giant? I think I'd probably rather shrink down. I've never gotten a question like this before in a live. I'd probably rather shrink down because I got again. Um, just so that way, then you wouldn't be able to see, see me, and then I could like listen in on conversations and report back to my friends and have some gossip. No, I'm just kidding. No, I would like to be able to be small, so that way I could I guess just hide around and do some fun stuff, and then be able, if I could go back to normal size whenever I wanted to, that would be a lot of fun. So I'd rather shrink for sure. No, I don't buy and resell. No, it's just for personal use. So yeah, so definitely knowing like who belongs in what box, definitely knowing like what type of relationship you have with certain people. And again, this does involve being honest with yourself and being honest about things. Absolutely, Charlie. Being honest about just where a certain person is or people are in your life, what stage you are in your life. The book readings. I will be doing a book reading live stream a little bit later. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Felix, but I'll be doing one later. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Ivan, I am so sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's been tough. Hi, Angel. So it's just about the idea of wellness, the idea of the pursuit of wellness and what that means to each person individually, and just trying to, improve it in a non perfectionistic way. It's going to be from the Gene Keys realm. So there's human design and the Gene Keys. It's kind of like a spiritual and personal development journey. And it's been incredibly helpful for me. And I like the way that Richard Rudd writes. I love his language, it's very poetic. So I do live stream readings of the Gene Keys books and a little bit of a little bit of human design. And so I really enjoy doing them. They're not super popular, but for some people, they just like to listen to me read. So they just find it to be soothing and not, you know, they just want something that's going to be chill. So, because usually my energy is pretty, high intensity or high level. So, I'm kind of all over the place. I kind of take some from here and take some from there, and um, you know, there's I think there's a lot of different types of beliefs out there for sure, and I think right now in this current climate, I think it's probably best that I don't um, just say, "Oh, hi." I don't just affiliate with one specific because I think that it's probably best. It just depends, Charlie, on my client schedule and on my personal life. Like, I typically don't do live streams too often on the weekends, um, unless it's a Sunday sometimes. But I wouldn't say I'm new age. I would just say that I was definitely raised very old school, and I still have some of those same beliefs, but I've also just expanded my, horizons and expanded my thoughts on it. But I just think that it's one of those things where I don't like to talk or go too much in depth about it, about my personal beliefs, only because I don't want to be offensive to anybody. And I think that there's enough, you know, difficulties around these things. So, yes, the flights are going to be insane, Ivan. I did hear that. Normally, I'm not a big news watcher. I just figure if I'm gonna hear about it from one of my friends or my partner or something, they'll kind of let me know because they know how I am. That I get a little bit sensitive to certain news topics and things like that. If I hear too much, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So, but they kind of filter it for me and they kind of let me know what's going on in the world. But I heard that myself on the news and I was like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, I mean, it's amazing that we still have people that are willing to do the work, that are willing to still come in. Um, it's kind of like with you, right? It's amazing that we have people that are willing to, quite honestly, what they're doing is volunteering their time. Now, I'm going to assume and I'm going to hope that there's going to be back pay. I mean, I could only assume that. I can't see how there wouldn't be back pay for all of this. If you're having to like work and come in and do your job. However, for the people that aren't working, they're out of that money too. And I actually have some family members. So yeah, yeah, flying next weekend. I mean, I'm wishing the best for you, to be honest, but it's going to be a little insane for sure. I think they said they were starting with like 4% of the flights being down, and then it's going to go up to approximately 10%. But you have to think about it. Like air traffic controllers, you know, they they need time too, and we don't have enough as it is. So there's no pay record of available for October. Okay. Wow. That's pretty crazy. I haven't heard that. Um, that should probably be something that's talked about or maybe whistle blown or something. That would be interesting. Right. Yeah. Thank you, Julian. I appreciate you. I mean, if I was shrunken down, I don't think anybody would need to take care of me because I would assume that I would just be able to come back to normal size whenever I want. Um, yeah, I mean, to be just not available, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I have family members that now are they're not in the military, now they're just private citizens. I forget the correct wording for it, but they've been, off for weeks, well, I guess now what, a month now. And they're just like, uh, we thought this was going to be over like 2 weeks ago, or we thought, so they've been having not really a difficult time with it so much, but it is starting to wear on them, like not getting paid and stuff. I mean, they're fine because they're so, stuck. They're just so stuck in their because they're so, stuck. They're just so stuck in their ways, and they don't want to grow, even if it's for the betterment of the country. They just don't want to grow, and they don't want to have the dialogue. They don't want to have the communication. They don't want to change their stance. Everyone is so afraid of being seen as wrong. Whereas for me personally, I'm totally okay with being wrong, and I will happily admit when I'm wrong because what I know that's happening is I'm learning something, or I'm being given the opportunity to learn from something, right? This could be seen as something that hopefully um, the people that are in charge of our country will learn from. Do I think that's what's going to happen? I don't know. But I hope so. I really hope so. Yeah. And I'm sure it does to a lot of our service members, um, especially with, like the cutting of benefits and things like that. And, you know, with there being some service members that were relying on those benefits, because there are some people that it doesn't matter what job you have, you still sometimes can fall on hard times. You still sometimes can need that support. And so then, you're just, it's kind of, you keep on having things get cut from under you. And, it just makes things a little bit difficult. But I definitely think that something's got to give soon, hopefully sooner than later. And, just I think the biggest thing is just being able to say, hey, let's not worry about who was right and who was wrong. Let's just work on having bipartisan policies, and let's just work on having better communication and let's just work on like stop mudslinging in the media and things like that. But at the same time, you know, we've turned the news into entertainment. Thank you so much, Marco. I appreciate that. We've turned the news into entertainment. We've turned a lot of different things into entertainment. We've kind of hit the pause a bit on growing and learning and educating ourselves. And instead, what we're doing is we're just taking what somebody else has said and repeating it. And that's not us using our brain. That's not us using our, creative thinking skills or problem solving skills. That's us just repeating a rhetoric that we've heard from somewhere else. So that's the really big reason why I try to stay away from the news, is because I don't ever want to be accused of anything like that, and I never want to feel as though I'm influenced either way. And the other thing too that I like to remind people of, and I hardly ever talk about this type of stuff. This is going to probably be like a one-time thing, and then I'm out because I don't really like to talk about these things. But the other thing that I like to remind people of is there is more than just two political parties. Think about that. You do have more choices than just two political parties. There's more than two political parties out there. Hi, Clint. So just don't forget that, it's just, right. Maybe there's not enough funding right now, or maybe there's not whatever. Maybe there's, I mean, there's a lot. So thank you, Clint. I appreciate you. I did know that actually. Yeah, I was aware of that. Yeah. The military industrial complex. I mean, it's it's a difficult thing, There's people that want to serve their country, and then there's people that find this incredibly appealing because they're seeing an opportunity for themselves, right? They're seeing me. Yeah, I guess because it's not new information for me, that I don't find it shocking anymore. No, Charlie, I don't have any pets. Um, my partner does, but I don't have any pets. Thank you so much. It's just not shocking to me because it's something that I've, heard about since I was growing up. A lot of my family members that were recruited were from low income households. Um, so, and then they see this as an opportunity to have, help, and to have like college paid for, and to have like security when it comes to, certain things, and when it comes to, certain things for their children that they could, well, I think you can't do it anymore, but there were certain things that you could do, and you could pass certain things on to your children, like if you didn't use them, like for college and stuff. So, there was a lot of things, but yes, when you want to have something sound a certain type of way, and when you want to have something sound incredibly good, you're going to go to people that don't have a lot because, well, it's going to sound like more than if you go to another or a higher income household, you know? And that's what it is. It's just it's a different mentality. It's just a different way of thinking. Um, and they just have less opportunities. So that doesn't mean that it's right, but oh, he has a cat. Yeah, I would probably be dead. I'd probably get eaten up. But yeah, so there's about 10 more minutes. This has definitely taken a very interesting turn from from me actually. Um, Definitely inspired by the live chat though. I appreciate everyone's participation and everything like that. But yeah, that's a question too is can we be well if we have a sick country? And people will fight me on this, and people will say our country isn't sick, and da da da. And I'm like, I'm not just saying my country's sick. I'm just saying, in general, can you be well if your country is sick? It's just a question. Maybe rhetorical, maybe not, but it's something to ask yourself, right? When you're thinking about corruption, when you're thinking about, all of these things that are going on, can you be well? I think that there's ways that you can find to be well. I think that there's ways that you can. I feel like it's a very negative way to to kind of live. If you feel as though like the government is in control of everything and the government controls the way that you live, or that is your example, right? Thank you, Marco. um you want to think about it like um this might be this is probably a little bit of an older reference, but if anyone's ever seen Parks and Recreation, the character Ron Swanson, who's so like anti-government and anti-everything, and he's like, yeah, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyways, that's what I kind of think of. I'm like, you know, our country in and of itself, yeah, I mean, right, because things can always get better, and there's cycles to things. There's constant cycles to things, and things are going to be changing very rapidly within the next 10 years, especially with AI, especially with all things that are going to be going on, having to do with that. um, there's a lot of questions out there, but one thing that you don't have to question is there's going to be a lot of change happening in the next 10 years. It's going to be happening very rapidly. And if we thought in the last 10, 20 years there was rapid change, we're we're really, on the precipice of rapid change. And so we want to be able to prepare ourselves for that. However that plays out, we're not really sure how it's going to play out, but we want to be prepared for that. We want to understand that it might be a good idea to be polite to your electronics when you're talking to them and say please and thank you just in case. I'm just kidding. But in all actuality, that is what I started doing like way before anybody was like afraid of like AI and stuff like that. Thank you, Felix. I was always like, thank you, Alexa. Please, Alexa, thank you. I was so paranoid. But anyways, there's just going to be like really rapid advancements, and so you have to be able to have tools, and you have to be able to have an understanding like things are not going to be stagnant, things are going to be changing, and you as a person, I know, I'm serious. Hi CT. I really would. I would be like, please, or whoever, right? Or like, I don't really use Siri that much, but yeah, when I used Alexa and all that I stopped using all that stuff though, because then I got into a whole other like thing, and I was like, oh, like what if what if the government's listening or what, like all those silly things. I was like, I'm just going to turn all this stuff off. This stuff gets too ridiculous. But you have to think about, yeah, things are going to be changing really quickly and things are going to be happening at a really fast rate. And how are we going to be able to cope with that when there's so many people that are, not seemingly able to deal with change or seemingly able to be good with change? How can we handle that? How can we, find the tools and find the ways? Well, you find your coping mechanisms, right? Box breathing, working out, finding routines, finding things that are going to be good and healthy for you, doing things for yourself that's going to make you feel better. Yeah, farming, livestock, farming in general, to be quite honest. Yeah. That is something that definitely requires humans. So, um yeah, if you isn't that ironic too actually? Go be a farmer. I'm just kidding. I'm not here to give career advice. That's not what I do. Well, I do that sometimes, but not like legit career advice. It's just like, do you think this is the right fit for you? um, but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where you want to be able to be prepared for things to change. And we're seeing some change right now. We've experienced some rapid changes this year. Um, as a country, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As a country, how are we handling it? I'm not really sure. I'm actually just wearing some slides. um, I'm not really sure. I don't really have a gauge on that. So, but I do think that, focusing on the way that we're handling it ourselves, that's probably the best thing that we can do. No, they're just Adidas slides. That's the best thing that we can do, right? Like, Dave Chappelle, right? He made a really good comment one time, and he said something about just keeping your side of the or your corner of the world, um, nice and neat and clean, and protecting your corner of the world, and taking care of your community and all of that. And I think that if we all, I do not, I don't own those now. Um, so it's just about finding ways to, of course, help yourself. Yeah, I mean, if there is an office anymore, you kind of have to think that way. I think we're going to see the elimination of the office. Yeah. I don't think that we're going to really need to have that type of work environment anymore. Yeah. Because we're going to be able to do, working remotely, and I think things are going to be a lot more streamlined. I think things are going to be a lot more, I mean, like I said, there's positives, but I think there's also too many unknowns. No, I don't. I don't. Uh, I'm not. I just don't own them. It's not that I'm not into them. I just don't own them. But yeah, so that's just what I think. I mean, that's just kind of where I see it going. I think people are going to. Thank you so much, CT. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's just the way that my lips are shaped and my teeth. I'm always getting lipstick on my teeth. um, yeah, and I think it'll be more like working remotely, not so much working from home per se, but I think working remotely will be what is normal. Um, but we'll find out. We'll see. The biggest thing, it was just yeah, I think it's just, the biggest thing for all of us in this upcoming time and even right now, right? Is just to focus best on doing what we can do to protect ourselves and to take care of ourselves. And we can also, of course, just always try our best to reel ourselves in when we need to. And and just kind of try to be as pleasant as we possibly can. Do I coach on what? I just coach on wellness. Aw, thank you, Caleb. And unfortunately, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to be leaving. I've been on for about an hour and I do have some things that I'm going to need to be getting to. So I have a client coming up. Here too. So thank you guys so much for engaging with me in the live stream. I've had a lot of fun with you, and I know Caleb. Okay. I'll stay on for like 5 more minutes. um, I know, and I can't schedule my live streams. Thank you so much, Johnny. Um, I just don't. Well, oh, that's right. I still need to do the readings. So I needed to do the readings, but I have my client. Well, my client's at. Well, yeah, I was going to. I am going to be back on later. I will be back on later, but it'll just be to do the readings. It won't be for a like live chat type thing. I mean, live chat will be going, but it probably wouldn't be good to do too much interrupting. So, but anyways, thank y'all so much for joining me today for this live stream. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off. And I will see y'all on the next video or live stream. Be well, stay wild as well. I'll see y'all later today.